Hi everybody, welcome to our Thursday night demo. We are whipping up, literally whipping up, some tiramisu tonight, which is not as hard as it sounds. This is basically the only thing that you're going to cook is the egg yolks that I have here. I'm going to come back to that. First, I want to mention that we have a couple of really fun demos coming up. This one, of course. Next week we have Steve from Vina's Fizz House coming to make some cocktails with us, so that's going to be awesome, some summer cocktails. The week after that, on the 20th, we have Jim Amaral coming back, and he's going to do sourdough starter, which I think is going to be really popular and really good for a lot of people out there. And then on the 27th, which is the last Thursday in May, my big brother Jonathan, the gentleman farmer in Maine, is coming back, and we're going to make homemade gnocchi, and that's going to be super fun. And the 15th is spring into summer. We're going to have a tent sale over on the other side at the Customs House from 10 to 2. And we're going to have Chris Toy signing books from 10 to noon. He's got 4 books out now, which is pretty exciting. So if you have one at home, bring it on in. If you want to buy one, we have plenty for sale here as well. So tiramisu takes a little putting together, but that's really the hardest part of it. None of it's hard. I shouldn't even use that word. What I'm doing right now, this is called a sabayon, and this is 3/4 of a cup of sugar and 6 egg yolks. Can you see that? And I have been whipping this for, it's going to be about 5 minutes by the time I'm done. A lot of people don't do this process. I like it because cooking the egg yolks and the sugar, it gets really sticky, almost like a melted marshmallow. And that kind of helps everything hold together because you're going to be mixing cheese and we're going to be whipping up some cream. And so this just kind of helps everything hold together. Also, if you're at all squeamish about raw eggs, you're cooking your eggs right here. So what I have is, it's a little hot, but I have a double boiler. So I've got some water in the bottom that I'm keeping at a simmer, and then I brought that up to a boil, and then I put the sugar and the egg yolks in. And like I said, I'm just whipping this. So I'm using a KitchenAid mixer here with a whisk, which is really nice because I think it's going to get a lot more air into it than if you use the beaters. And it's a lot easier than doing it by hand with just a whisk. It's pretty hot here, so if you're using a whisk right over the pan, your arm's going to get kind of hot. So this is kind of a nice way to do it. You can absolutely do it by hand. You can absolutely use the mixer blades. I just happen to really like that this has a whisk feature on it. And that's looking pretty good. I think you can kind of see how sticky and thick that's getting. And it's definitely, the volume has about doubled there. And I'm not cooking this directly over the heat because I do want to make sure that I'm not just scrambling my eggs, and that's why we're using the double boiler here. I'm just going to set that aside for a sec, and I'm going to get my cream going over here. I'm going to do about 1.5 cups and eyeballing it a little bit there. Looks like about 1.5 cups. And we want to get this, when you're doing whipped cream, you want to start on kind of a little bit slower, and then we'll gradually increase the speed on this. But you also want to make sure you do not over whip your cream or you'll end up with butter. If you get to that point, just put a little bit of salt in it. Keep going until it's butter. Put it in the fridge and put it on your toast. It'll be fine. But we would prefer not to go that far. So we want a stiff peak here, which means that when we pull the whisk out, it's the cream will stay in like little peaks. So we're just going to let that go slowly there. It's great when you're making the tiramisu if you get everything you need already. Makes it go a little bit more smoothly. And this is mascarpone. Mascarpone is an Italian cream cheese. It's very similar to like Philadelphia cream cheese, what we get here, but it's richer. It's got more fat in it, and fat means flavor, And so it's going to really add, it's a little bit sweeter. It doesn't actually have sugar in it, but just from the sweetness of the cream. So we want to have a lot of that flavor and the thickness of the cream. And I'm just going to whip this a little bit longer, help it cool off just a little, because I don't want to melt my mascarpone, which, by the way, I've left out for about 2 hours now. I want it at room temperature, but I don't want my eggs super hot. I'm going to speed this up, and hopefully you can hear me over all of these mixers. Get a little bit more there. But this is a great, Mother's Day is Sunday, and this is a great Mother's Day dessert. It looks hard. It looks like you put tons of energy and time into it, but it's really, really easy to put together. So what we're going to do basically is we're going to mix our egg yolks and sugar in with our mascarpone. Then we're going to add our whipped cream to that. And then we have ladyfinger cookies. I tried making these for the first batch I made, and they came out really soft. They didn't really work as well as I would have liked them to. So I bought these guys up at Shaw's, and they were perfect. They didn't get too soggy when I dipped them. Now tiramisu, I'm assuming that everybody watching knows what tiramisu is, but it's an Italian dessert that is, let's go a little faster there. From what I understand, it was really invented not that long ago, like 20 or 30, 40 years ago, in New York City. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read. And everything you read on the internet is true, right? So it's a really rich, really flavorful, very high calorie dessert. But it's just so delicious, and it's such a fun presentation to bring to a party or to serve to your guests. I made one Sunday for my first dinner party in 14 months, and it was a big hit, so that was really fun. All right, I'm going to put the egg yolks in here now. And I used caster sugar, which we have in the store, which is a kind of a fine sugar. And it tends to dissolve a little faster than regular granulated sugar. And I just like it for this kind of thing where you're trying to, where you're really trying to dissolve the sugar quickly. But you can definitely use granulated sugar. And again, look how nicely just the whisk is working in here. It's beautiful. And turn this up just a little more. And my apologies for the background noise. Hopefully you can hear me. So this is just really beautifully smooth. This is the mascarpone and the egg yolks and the sugar. And that's all the sugar we're adding, and just that 3/4 of a cup, which doesn't sound like much, but it's plenty. Okay, and we're gonna actually see if I can clean my whisk off without making too much of a mess here. There we go. Okay, so while that's still whipping, I have a 1/2 cup of coffee. This is espresso, so it's a really strong coffee. Anything that you can make at home, it doesn't have to be espresso, but espresso is really nice because it gives you a lot of flavor. And I'm also adding to that a no-name coffee brandy, about 1/4 of a cup. You do not need to use alcohol. You can just use more coffee if you want to, if you're making this for a bunch of kids or if you just don't like the booze. You can also use rum or something that's not so sweet. This is a pretty sweet liqueur. And I am going to put some cocoa on the bottom of my dish. Now, the recipe says a 9x9 square. It's a lot easier to do a square, but the round works just as well. And I'm just going to coat the bottom here with some unsweetened cocoa powder. adds a little bit of flavor. There we go. Our cream is almost there. And you can see how nice and thick this is, but it's not butter. It's still just cream, but it's just really beautifully thick. So that is done. So we'll go back to this step. So as you see, if you have everything you need just laid out, it's really pretty quick and easy to put this together. Spatula, and we're not going to whip the cream into this. We're going to fold it in because we want to keep the air in the whipped cream. One nice and light and airy, fluffy. So folding it. So we're just kind of cutting into it, gently folding it into our sabayon. Sabayon is a French word which is the same as zabiglione, or however you say it in Italian. And that is the egg yolk and sugar, which can be served just as is with fruit. It is an actual dessert. So you can see I'm still keeping the fluff of the whipped cream. So it's nice and airy still. But I'm not just stirring it in violently, flattening it out. Okay, I think that's going to be good for now. All right, now the fun part. We are going to dip, if I can open the package. Sorry, Heather. Dragging her around with my microphone cable here. So we are going to dip these in our coffee, and in this case, coffee brandy. And we want to get a nice soak on it. Comment on my last one was they weren't soaked enough, so I want to make sure. And then we're just going to lay these in and we're going to cover. It doesn't matter what your pattern is on here. Oh my God, it smells so good. And really, the worst part about this whole thing is going to be the 24 hours that you have to leave it in your fridge. It doesn't really have to be 24 hours, but I would say at least 5 or 6 hours, because you really want the flavors to meld. And your cookies are going to be a little bit soggy, but soggy in a good way. They're going to be really flavorful. And I might be soaking those a little too long because I'm already running out of juice here, but I can make more. So it doesn't have to cover every little tiny bit of the bottom of the pan, but you do want it pretty well spaced out. So like I said, with a square pan, it's a lot easier because it'll just fit perfectly. You may have to break your cookies, but there won't be so much geometry involved. And then I'm just going to plop about half of this on. Smooth that out. I'm salivating. This just looks so good. All right. So, and then we're going to continue with our cookies, which are, I think, going to end up with a lot more coffee brandy in them than coffee, because I'm not going to go make another cup of coffee right now. But that's okay, because we're making this for Ben, our friend Ben who works here, who loves tiramisu, and we're just going to have to warn him that he probably should not be eating this for breakfast tomorrow morning when he comes in. All right, do not try this at home, folks. Really, you should use coffee, not just straight liquor. But we like to live life on the edge. And we promise we won't drive after we eat this. Ooh, it does smell good, that's for sure. Okay. And you can put a few more cookies on here than I'm doing. I'm kind of just doing this fast so that you can see how it's done. So cookies again, and we're going to put the rest of our sauce, cream, not sauce, our cream mixture. And like I said, you really should let this refrigerate, I would say at least 6 hours, just so all of those flavors can kind of meld together in there. This cream, by the way, if you want to lick the spoon, it's really good. I'm not going to do it right now, but then to top it off, and I usually do this right before serving, but you can do this when you finish it. We're going to put a little bit more cocoa powder on top. And this, again, this is unsweetened cocoa powder, but it's going to give you a little bit of that chocolate flavor that we like so much. And then I'm going to take some dark chocolate, and I'm just going to grate this on top too, so that will give it a little bit of sweetness and a little bit more of that really deep bitter chocolate flavor. And you can use a large, this is a pretty small microplane, but you can use something a little bit larger, like even a cheese grater. And there you have it, folks. That is tiramisu, a very boozy tiramisu in this case. But I bet it's still going to taste good. And that we're going to cover with plastic wrap, and we're going to put this in the fridge here at the store. And Ben's going to have this for breakfast tomorrow morning. And the rest of us will probably have a little bit for lunch too. And yeah, so that's it. That is tiramisu in a nutshell. Very quick and easy. Sounds difficult, looks difficult. It really isn't. It's really fun to make. Again, next week we have Steve Corman from Vina's Fizz House. He's going to come make some cocktails with us. The 15th is Spring into Summer. That's a Saturday from 10 to 2. Sales here at Now You're Cooking. There's stuff going to be going on all over town. It's a Bath-wide celebration of spring into summer. And then we have Jim Amaral coming back on the 20th with sourdough, and the Gentleman Farmer in Maine on the 27th. And we're going to be making homemade gnocchi, and it's really, really good. And I hope you'll join us, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.